Hey, Megan Harris here. You're probably wondering why we're in your feed twice today. That's because we have a great conversation for you between our East Coast content director, Will Fulton, and our sponsor, the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership, which helps local businesses here understand and implement their own employee ownership options. We hope you enjoy.
Hey, I'm Will Fulton, content director at CityCast. I was born in Pittsburgh. All my roots are here in the Steel City. So I know Pittsburgh is a town that is always loud and proud about supporting its workforce and our community of thriving local businesses. That's why I am so excited to speak with Kevin McPhillips, the CEO of today's sponsor, the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership, to break down how employee ownership generates wealth for workers and strengthens our region's economy. We're also joined by two local political fixtures you probably know, Councilperson Erica Strasburger and Sarah Innamorato, to hear about their work on the center's citywide task force and how you can get involved in building a better future for Pittsburgh. It's Wednesday, September 20th. I'm Will Fulton, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. All right, good morning, everyone. Kevin McPhillips, CEO of the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership. Welcome to CityCast.
Hey, Will. Thanks so much for having us.
Of course. And we're also joined by Erica Strasburger, the co-chair of the center's citywide task force. Thanks for being here, Erica.
Hey, thanks for having us.
For sure. And we also have Sarah Innamorato, another key member of the citywide task force. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Will. How's it going?
Amazing. All right. So before we dig into all of the great work the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership is doing in Pittsburgh and all across Pennsylvania, I'd love to set the table a little bit. So I have heard the term employee-owned business, but I'm going to be honest, I'm still a little fuzzy on what that means exactly. And I'm wondering if you could break it down for me. Give me the brass tacks. Explain it to me like I have zero business sense, which is not a total lie.
It's not one thing. It's actually a group of different things depending on the particular company, etc. So I'll give you a couple real quick examples. The most common form of employee ownership it's actually called an ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan. And although very few know about this is a federal program that's been around for over 40 years. And it says the following. It says that a business owner could sell some or all of their business, 20%, 40%, 100%, whatever they wanted, to their employees. The employees pay nothing, not a penny. Instead, the business takes a loan from a bank to pay off the owner. The federal government and the state of Pennsylvania turn around and say, hey, look, if you do this, you never have to pay taxes again on your profits for whatever portion is owned by the employees. The owner gets paid full fair market value. The employees now have real shares in the company that are held in a trust. The business stays where it is, so it doesn't get sucked up, moved overseas or whatever. And employee-owned companies are, on average, about 12% more productive than non-employee-owned businesses, which means jobs, which means growth, which means support for communities. And nobody knows about this, which is why we're here.
Yeah.
Now that's largely, Will, for larger companies, about 20 employees or more. But there also are programs for smaller companies. Let's say that you're a hardware store, or you're a cafe, or you're a retail establishment, or a dry cleaner. And you've done this for years, you've done a great job, and it's time to retire. Instead of shutting the doors and selling off the chairs and table, you can negotiate with your employees, pick a fair number for the business, and establish either what we call a worker cooperative, where the business is jointly operated by the employees, or a relatively new structure in the U.S. called an EOT, an Employee Ownership Trust. So it becomes a profit share. And again, nobody knows about this, so we're trying to change that.
Yeah, Kevin, you tossed around some stats there. I was actually on the center site, and I saw some eye-popping stats for me. Just to pull out a few, workers at employee-owned businesses are 4 times less likely to be laid off. And employees at these companies, aged 28 to 34, an age that is very relevant to myself, have a 33% higher income than their peers at comparable gigs. And that's just to name a few. So, What are some other benefits that employees, companies, and the community at large can experience with this business model?
I was really excited to learn about employee ownership as someone who is very committed to achieving economic justice and working on creating a more equitable world. You're always looking at policy solutions. And when you're looking at issues that are that big and that systemic, it's hard to really put a finger on a policy or a solution that can actually begin to address those things. And when I heard about employee ownership, I was like, this is incredible. Without many changes to our laws and our statutes, we can invest in a program and encourage the formation of this particular type of business models and achieve these types of outcomes for workers, which was super appealing. And then diving into the political history of it all, I found that employee ownership models have been supported historically by Democrats and by Republicans. And I said, okay, what a great place to start, especially as a Democrat who was working in, at the time, a Republican-controlled General Assembly. So not only does it benefit the workers like you expressed, Will, but, it has benefits for the actual businesses too, right? These businesses tend to be more productive. They tend to grow faster. They're less likely to go out of business. And when you're looking at Pennsylvania and uniquely in Allegheny County, we have an aging population. And so we have folks who are leading companies right now who don't have a succession plan. Mm-hmm. And so we can either say, they get to retirement age and they sell to the highest bidder or they close that business. Or we can say, hey, we have an opportunity for you to look at selling this business to your employees. And not only does that keep their legacy alive, but for community, the benefit is that that business stays in that community, generating tax revenue and providing all the benefits of those local jobs and that connection to the community. So for me, I was like, it was a win-win-win-win-win. And it was something that was very easy to sell to the other side of the aisle and my Republican colleagues, where we really found that it overlapped on a lot of our shared values.
Yeah, the succession plan is interesting. If we learned anything from the show Succession, it's that if you don't have a plan in place, things can get pretty messy. Drama.
Absolutely. And I would echo so much of what Sarah said and say that I'll never forget getting that first pitch from Kevin on employee ownership that he just sort of explained to all of us right now, and thinking, what's the catch? Because it sounded too good to be true. And so it's so rare that as a policymaker, as a legislator, that there is something that's a policy that's already in place. And the only obstacle is that not enough people know about it. And so to be given the challenge of simply, and I say simply, it hasn't been that simple, but to simply publicize this existing policy that can bring wealth building to individuals, that can help communities retain their brick and mortar businesses, I thought this is something that I definitely want to be a part of.
We're really grateful for, and I mean this sincerely, the vision and the leadership of Councilmember Strasburger, who took it upon herself to invite us to have a hearing in City Council a few years back to try to explain what this was. And as Erica shared, it was impacting. And we gave a presentation, and it included some sort of testimonials from individuals who have gone through this, frontline working people. And some of it is rather emotional. And at the end of the hearing, Erica approached me and she said, Kevin, this was very good, but in the future, you should never show this to a pregnant woman.
It's so true, though. I mean, these stories that were shared in the hearing, whether they were in person or on sort of a video that was shared, it got to me and I started tearing up a little bit. Yes, maybe I was a little bit more emotional than I normally would have been in that moment, but I think it probably still would, because this is affecting people's lives and their livelihood and their futures. People who, in a time of vast economic inequality, then had the potential to not just build wealth, but be a part of owning a company that they never thought possible. That what they call an unveiling process, I think it was called, where they shared the news that every employee, if they wanted to be, would be a part owner of the company. That is incredible, I think, and just such a human level part of what we're talking about here, aside from the policies and the economic benefits and the community benefits. Like, on a human scale, it makes difference in people's lives.
I know one big thing the center is doing is the Pittsburgh citywide task force on employee ownership, which Erica and Sarah, you're both a part of. So, Mills, question for you: how does the task force help the center uphold its mission and spread the word?
I am so excited to be part of this task force and to help co-chair it, because it has brought diverse voices together from around the Pittsburgh region, and with people who range from experts in employee ownership or co-ops to people who are experts in economics to elected officials. I think the membership has really complemented the work that the Pennsylvania Center does, because the goal here is to formulate the best possible informational plan with the end goal of hopefully more businesses that convert to become co-ops or ESOPs or some sort of employee-owned business. And, it takes a lot of lifting to actually make that happen, especially given that the task force started and then a global pandemic hit, and now we're sort of back at it, able to do all the things we envisioned doing, hosting the in-person meetings, really working everything from local chambers of commerce to the Allegheny Conference on Community Development, local community organizations to organizations that co-op organizations associate with, and everyone in between. And I would say the last thing is we are charting a path that no other city has been able to accomplish. So we know that even in cities where there might be a presence of the National Center on Employee Ownership, or there might be employee-owned businesses, to have a citywide approach like this is a first across the country. And so the results of what we're doing can be gleaned and learned from in other examples in cities and counties across the country. And that's really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is the vanguard. We're on the cutting edge here. And I can tell you for certain, having spoken to them, there are cities across the country that have expressed serious interest in trying to know what are we doing and how are things going. I probably get 3 calls a week from other cities saying, hey, what's going on? We'd love to hear about it. And please tell us how we can do this in our city as well. And I'm just so grateful to the work of Erica and Sarah. And I'll mention that former Representative Sarah Innamorato has introduced legislation in the state of Pennsylvania House to create an Office of Employee Ownership and the Employee Ownership Program Assistance Act to provide meaningful assistance, meaningful funding to companies, organizations across the state that want to look at or potentially convert. And what a magical event that would be if that occurred, and how that would help so many working people in this state.
Sarah, what's your take? What's been the most rewarding part for you?
Yeah, in my experience on the task force it's been wonderful to just be educated on all the different components that go into helping to promote this style of business formation. And like Kevin said, this task force, along with some other legislation that was drafted in Colorado, informed a bill that I created a few sessions ago and have been able to introduce with a Republican member every session that I was there. And, like Kevin said, it would establish an Office of Employee Ownership within the Department of Community and Economic Development to really set the tone that Pennsylvania is invested in this type of business and wants to encourage its formation. And actually, when we were doing the bill and doing the research on it, historically, we had something similar that I think was passed in the 70s, where Pennsylvania was really investing in employee-owned businesses and really being intentional about their formation. And then the bill was, I think the office wasn't funded and the language was removed, I think, in the 90s. But I think that legacy of acknowledging that this has a win-win-win for so many different stakeholders and community members across the Commonwealth has led to the reason why we have so many employee-owned businesses in Pennsylvania. And it's time to re-up that message again and send a signal to the businesses across Pennsylvania and others who are looking to locate to Pennsylvania that we're here to help and support these types of initiatives. But outside of that legislation passing, it's wonderful to be able to take that action on a local level with the task force and not letting the passage of that bill be whether we act here in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County.
So Pennsylvania leading the way once again.
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, we talked about a lot of the benefits of employee-owned businesses, and we've talked about some of the businesses that are doing this. But I'm wondering, would you be able to share some of the recent success stories that have come out through some of the help from your organization?
There's a small town in central Pennsylvania called Sealands Grove. It's a farming community, and the town of Sealands Grove has about 4,000 residents there. And there's a business there, and it's called LB Water. And what they do is they install pipe, any kind of pipe you want, gas pipe, water pipe, reservoir pipe, a lot of developments and new construction, those kinds of things. And the business had 40 employees about 20 years ago. And the owners were in their late 70s, and he wanted to sell the business. But everyone who wanted to buy the business wanted to move it out of Sealands Grove. This is 40 jobs in a town of 4,000 people, and that's pretty significant. Well, the owners couldn't do that. These people were their neighbors. They went to the store with them. Their kids went to school, etc. They learned about employee ownership, and they sold the business to their employees for more than they were offered by the companies that wanted to move it. Fast forward 15 years, they invited me to their 15-year celebration. They had over 200 employees, and every one of the 40 employees who were there on day one had enough money to retire then if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. This is drivers, installers, administrative folks in the office, as well as the management. And the business today has over 300 employees. It's a remarkable example of exactly what can happen with employee-owned businesses. And that's happening today in the Pittsburgh region. And our goal is to try to create more of those businesses here and save more economic lives.
All right, so we want to wrap things up here and give our listeners a chance to get involved. So where can folks go from here for additional resources, to find out more about the task force, to sign up for some informational sessions, all that good stuff?
Well, there's a couple of ways. One is you can contact any of the members of the task force, and you can find them on our website. Sarah or Erica, Jake Pollock from the mayor's office, any number of people. But if you really want to learn and do a deeper dive in employee ownership, come to the Pittsburgh Task Force for Employee Ownership website at pittsburghtaskforce.org, pittsburghtaskforce.org, and you can learn a great deal. You can reach out to us. You can sign up for a community meeting. You can connect with someone who's already doing this. And you can reach us there or contact us at the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership, which is paceo.org.
Amazing. And we're going to have all those links in our description to make it super easy for people out there to find y'all. I'd like to be part of a task force one day. No one's ever asked me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I was also going to say, we do have, despite my departure from the State House, we still have the Office of Employee Ownership bill in the General Assembly. It's the mantle is being taken by my Republican colleague, Rep. Kristen Marcel. She's out in Bucks County, and locally, Rep. Nick Piscatano is taking my place as the Democratic lead on it. But contact your state representative, your state House member, your state senator, and tell them you support establishing an Office of Employee Ownership in Pennsylvania. Since we drafted the bill using the Office of Employee Ownership in Colorado legislation, we've seen a number of other states draft legislation based on ours that we wrote and successfully get that through their state houses. So now we're kind of falling behind. So we really are trying to drum up some public support and encourage the passage of that legislation so we can keep pace with the other states that are moving ahead with this type of office.
That is all great stuff. Sarah, Erica, Kevin, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about what the PA Center for Employee Ownership does, and thank you for all your work throughout the community. I know our listeners appreciate it, and I certainly do too. That is a wrap on this episode of CityCast Pittsburgh. If you're interested in hearing more about the Pennsylvania Center for Employee Ownership, go to ownershippennsylvania.org. You can talk to an expert, read some success stories, find employee-owned businesses in your neighborhood, and a ton of other free resources. Once again, that is ownershippennsylvania.org. We have that link in our show notes, along with a ton of other ways for you to get involved. And of course, we will be back tomorrow with more news around our lovely city. Thanks for listening.